for me is a breach of permission. I assume that I can just say, for example, I don't know, take a stick of gum or something, something like that. Like, it's always really important to make sure that you're in a reciprocal relationship, and so I do have a tendency to do that on occasion. But I think the main thing is, giving myself permission to feel or to speak or act or that kind of thing.
Remember that. Remember, you all, the question, and I'm sorry for those of you who just joined. We're going over our 5 core values, 5 being the strongest, 1 being the weakest, and so I'm just going to repeat a couple of things because I forgot to hit record on the recorder for the class. So the question that I asked earlier was, how do you bring balance between number 5 and number 1? Remember, number 5 is your strongest, number 1 is your weakest, and I'm going to get to the importance of the balance here in a second. So now, amor was 3rd, and that's love. That's your balance that you have, and you have that is associated with your heart. So tell me why you found this here.
So my ability to love both myself and humans in general. I do have kind of deep thinking and then the reason I didn't put it higher is that the challenge to love or homophobia or classism or things like that, where they didn't beat somebody down. I have a really hard time with good acceptance and love and stuff toward people who espouse these things, and I work on it, but that's one of my areas that I can do it, feel confident in my ability, but do it universally immediately, right? I have to work towards it. But it's a good balancing point.
Good. So, you guys give me 1 second. I left the dry erase board in the other room, so I'm going to go get the dry erase board. But I want you guys to start getting to where you can actually stand up. Okay? So readjust. I'm going to go get the dry erase board, and I don't necessarily have to see your face. You just have to see me and hear what I'm saying, okay? Alright, be right back. Cabrón. So now, I want you guys to pay attention to your 5 core values. Remember number 5 being your feet, the strongest, the top of your head being number 1, and then number 2, 3, and 4 you found on your own within your body. And I want you to imagine that your feet is your foundation. It's your platform. Can you guys see that? This is number 5. It is your strength. It's your foundation. Okay? Then I want you to imagine number 1, your head. I'm going to try to do this from up above. Number 1, your head is a joint. See your arms. Being the teeters of a scale. Does everybody see where we're going with this? And number 3. These are a little off, but these are supposed to align to number 3. This is your scale, your 5 core values. 5 being your strongest, 1 being your weakest, 3 being your middle point, and 4 and 2 being your counter. Okay? So now, if you're where you are, I want you to close your eyes and focus on your feet. Close your eyes and focus on your feet. Number 5, what is that core value? What is that strength for you? Now, with your eyes continue to be closed, focus on core value number 1. Your weak point. How do you balance number 1 and number 5? That was the question I asked you earlier. In order to balance number 1 and number 5, you must look to number 4 and number 2. These are your plates. If one leans too far over than the other, you will be out of balance. You are at risk of tipping over. Now, you may not tip over because it all depends on how strong your foundation is. But what you want to look at is your weak point. You want to focus on that. Because no matter how strong your foundation is, you can still break from here and above. This one may weigh too much this way and will put tension on number 1 because it is the weakest. Once it puts tension on number 1, it begins to put tension on number 3. It depends on where your pillar will snap. Okay? Now, we are not built this way. We are not built like a balance. We have to find these places. So that's why I tell you, number 2, number 3, and number 4, you have to identify those on your body. Okay? For example, Jesus, yours was number 3. Or your number 3 was amor. Okay? Love. This is something you really need to pay attention to. All of you pay attention to your number 3. On where it is at. Roxana, for you, your number 3, where did it match up to? You'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, my 3, my middle part was stent, which is my upper abdomen or stomach solar plexus area.
Do you often get pains there in the center, right there? She froze up on me. Okay, Todd, I'm going to go to you. Todd, your number 3 was sense, belly or navel, okay? And that's very interesting that it's sense. And last week you explained to us that sense was more than just thought, it was feeling as well, you know? And for sense to be there in your belly and navel goes to the saying, my gut instinct, I feel it in my gut, right? And then sense. So do you often get pains there sometimes in your belly or your navel? Are you drawn to your belly or your navel many times?
I do.
When this happens for all of y'all, begin to pay attention a little bit on what your 3rd was and where that is on your body. And if you start to feel achy or painy in that area, that is your first sign to telling you that one of these, number 2 or number 4, is off a little bit. Your first sign. Okay? So it's not that I want you to look at an intense pain that you should have a medical doctor, look at you, but it should be something that just pulls your mind a little bit. For me, it is the space in between my shoulders in my neck. I don't know if I can't show you guys, but if this is the person, I'm horrible at drawing, so, But for me, it's this little ball right here in the back of my shoulders, right there. When I start feeling a little pain there, then I begin to know that one of these is off, okay? What you have to do is the practice. Excuse me, I got cotton mouth. What you have to do is a practice called Know Yourself and Seek Self-Improvement. Write that down. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. Pay attention to that little ache, that little pain in your 3rd. And the reason why I want you to identify where that was on your body, everyone's is different, is this is one of your PowerPoints, folks. I'm going to be talking about your personal PowerPoints more throughout our courses. Touch this with your power hand. Now, power hand means your strongest hand, not physically. Power hand is your strong hand spiritually. You may be your left hand, it may be your right hand. Okay? You're gonna need to figure out which one is your power hand. That's an exercise that I want you guys to work on this week as well. Which one is your power hand? Which one is your hand that you use the most In spiritism, in your spiritualism, here's how you figure that out. Start paying attention to your hands. Which one do you sprinkle more with? Which one do you scratch more with? Which one are you scrubbing your floors with? Are you sweeping with? Are you picking up the dust when you cleanse? All of these things are important. That hand becomes your power hand. Many times it will become the hand that you are most dominant with as far as writing. But not always. Not always. This is why you need to pay attention to which hand you do more of your workings with. When you identify your power hand, then you will take that power hand, and when you start feeling the little ache that draws you to number 3, you'll take that power hand and you'll put it on that area. And you'll touch it. And you meditate. You meditate on that spot. And once you're grounded into number 3, once you're grounded into the value, then you begin to take a look at number 2 and number 4. Here's how you identify which one of those is most out of balance. The spot in which you have selected for number 2 and number 4 on your body, the one that aches a little bit, the one that wakes up a little bit, that's the one that is out of balance. That's the one that's too heavy. The one that you begin to neglect, let's say if it's number 2, the one you begin to neglect is the one you don't pay attention to. It becomes weightless, almost non-existent. Okay? So then, if it is number 2 that is starting to become non-existent, less in weight, number 4 becomes heavier. So number 4 starts pulling. This is how we begin to know that we are out of balance. We're out of line. If we are unbalanced in our values, in our body, we are unbalanced in life. Okay? This is why it is important to do this exercise. So, how do you do this? You build routine. No one's going to remind you that you're out of balance, and several times you may just take certain aches and pains into the play of normal everyday life. Who here does not have pain in their everyday life? Right? You're tired from working. You're tired from creating product. You're tired from studying. You're tired from, you got a headache. You got this. You got all of these things. And those pains are just natural with everyday life, And so no one's going to remind you within those pains that your values are off. You're unbalanced. As long as you're making it one day to the next and you're surviving and you're able to wake up, you're fine in your eyes. You can make it another day. Those are manipulative ways to think. Those are the ways that hinder you from good progress in your practice as a student, as a servant, as a teacher, as an instructor, whatever. When you say number 4 is the heaviest and you're spending too much time on that, it's very simple to just say, how do I begin to decrease number 4 and increase number 2? Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. Back to the exercise on how you figure this out. All right? With these two. You schedule time. You have to schedule your time. So think about that now. When will you place at least just 20 minutes is all it takes, anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, for you to spend some time to look at yourself, okay? You gotta look at yourself. You gotta figure out where you are. And the reason why I tell you this is because as you go forward in this practice, you'll become a servant to many people, and you'll forget to look at yourself. You'll forget to look at your own well-being. And how can we serve others if we are not balanced and we're trying to balance them? So get yourself into this routine. And the routine is, again, 20 to 30 minutes that you can look at yourself and find your center and put your power hand on there and say, talk to me. Am I out of balance? Am I good? Now, you know what? I don't know anybody who will always continuously be in balance, okay? There is just no one out there that is perfectly balanced. And if they are, you know, well, then they need to come teach us how. But I want you to look at that. And like I said, how do you balance number 1 and number 5? How do you balance those two? Okay? You balance them, 1, by first identifying number 3. Is there too much pressure one way or the other? Leveling out number 4 and number 2, your 2 weight plates. And when you've identified a perfect balance and line between those, then you focus on number 1 and number 5. And how do you strengthen number 1 and number 5? When you can get number 1 to be as strong as number 5, you create a second foundation. When you create the second foundation, your pillar is stronger. You have to practice number 1 just as much as you practice number 5. That's going to be your own personal growth and development. When you strengthen number 1 and number 5 and they're both 2 solid foundations, these 2 are easier to balance because you give the pillar strength. Now, how do you keep one foundation from falling onto the other foundation? Huh? How do you keep this and this from squishing it all and just all falling apart? You have to add stronger pillars to the edges. This is simple. Can anybody tell me how you build these pillars, what these pillars are? Anybody care to guess where did these pillars come from that hold up the 2 foundations? Sammy?
Is it from working on like 2 and 4?
No. Thank you for sharing. Okay. This, my friends, is your community. Your community is one of the pillars that will hold up the entire structure. Your community. You have to be involved in your community. Whatever that community may be. Whether it's your physical community. Mine is here in Midtown and 3rd Ward. You know, am I involved in it? Do I shop there? Am I known there? Do I go out there? Do I walk the streets there? Do I work there? Some of us work far away from where we live. But your community, where is your community where you live? Is your community the magical community? You know, that may not be in your neighborhood. That may be, you know, across town. Are you involved with them? Are you building better friendships? Huh? Are you involved in your community? It could be online as well. there are several people who we all know who are involved in their spiritual community online. They have Facebook groups, they have forums, they have blogs, they have radio shows, they have several different things that keep them involved in their community. Some people are writers for publications. Denise Alvarado, for example, has several publications, and not all of them are her work. Several of the articles come from different practitioners. These practitioners are involved in their community, in their spiritual community, by being active in this way. So you think of things like that. How are you active in your community? That's number one. That's community. Anybody care to take a gander at what this one is? Jesus, please, go ahead.
I have a feeling it's ancestors or your spiritual supports.
That is almost correct, yes. While it is partially your ancestors, those who have passed on, it is those who are the living, okay? The people who you care about in your life now, the people who are your support structure, the people who you are most intimate with. This is the other support beam. It could be your brother, your best friend. It could be your cousin, your husband, your whoever. But it is not always just one. These pillars are made up of many stones. Think Greece, think Rome, think all of these ancient temples that have been built with pillars, and every time you see those pillars, none of them is just one solid mass. That's insane. They would have had to, first of all, they would have had to build several of them at one time, chisel them out, and then God only knows how many of them would have broken in the shipping process. So what did they do? They were smart. They built them in, they cut them into small sections, and then they stacked them together. And one interlocked with the other. Easiest example I can give you is Legos. When you start snapping those Legos together, they stick, they're not going anywhere. It's the same with those pillars. So it's not just one. So your community can be built up of many different things. This support structure can also be developed of many different things, many different people. Now, how? And you guys are going to say, God, this is so much work to take care of yourself and be a good example and make yourself happy and everybody else happy at the same time. I know, God, who would have thought? But how do you keep these two supporting you, supporting your foundations? Anybody? Todd, go ahead. Y'all don't be shy.
You keep interacting with them. You keep participating in your community. You keep participating in the lives of your loved ones and your friends.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else? Nikki. Coley? Go ahead, Coley.
Yeah. You take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. You interact with your community and be present. But also, my friends, they need to see you practice these things. Number 5, number 1, number 4, number 3, and number 2. They must see you practice these things and be these things. When they see you practice these things and you be these things, that makes you an honest person first, a truthful person as well, Who wouldn't stand behind an honest, truthful person? Your community and your support system will stand behind you. But in order for them to do that, in order for you to do that with anybody, you must ensure that they are practicing their values. You must ensure that you're practicing your values. You must ensure that they know that you're number 3, number 4, number 1, number 2, number 5. So, your assignment for this week is going to select 5 people that know you. And they are going to hold you accountable. You are going to tell them, these are my 5 core values. 5 of them. These are my 5 core values. And then you're just going to ask them to be silent, not mention anything to you, but observe you. And observe to see if they are, if you are practicing your core values, if they see them in you. Now don't just pick any random person. Be selective. And this is going to take 2 weeks to do. So this assignment is due in 2 weeks. I want you to really put some thought into who you're going to select your first week. And then your second week, ask them to dedicate some time to paying attention to you. More than likely, those people are in this column over here. So start looking at this column. Start looking at your support system for those 5 people. And then take a gander, just a little look. Are these 5 people by any chance? Here we go. Are they in your community? It might be interesting to see what you discover, where they're at. So now, my good friends, we're going to take a little break. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. And like I said, I was going to start giving you guys more breaks because sometimes we got to absorb all of the knowledge. We got to do a little self-reflecting ourselves. And people got to pee. So go on ahead, take about 10 minutes. We'll come back, absorb all of this stuff, go stretch your bones a little bit. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of more things. And I hope you guys are learning a lot right now. All right, be back in 10. I took a breakfast. Hey, Linnell, we're all on a little break right now. We'll be back at 9:10.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Give everybody a chance to come back on real quick. And while you do, so now, everybody has their core values. Everybody has their foundation, their pillars. You guys have an interesting 2 weeks ahead of you. You're going to start holding yourself accountable, and you're going to start having other people hold you accountable. And those people more than likely will very much be people that are in your support system, and those people in your support system will more than very well likely be in your communities that you're involved with. So, as we move forward, we work on our personal identities a little bit. Todd, I'm going to pick on you a little bit more tonight as well. So we were talking about doctors, what kind of doctors you were going to be, right? What kind of influence you were going to be in your communities. And remember, the influence that you're going to be in your community is not necessarily your magical community, your spiritual community, but very much so also in your mundane community, where you live, where you shop, where you eat, where you do your business, where you hang out, That could be the gay community. It could be the magical community. It could be whatever community you're involved with. Activism, politics, recycling, etc., etc. The point of that is to be of being a doctor in your community is being a spiritual example to that community, to being a light in the darkness, okay? And that is that people will look to you and say, there is someone that I can ask for help, I'm going to give a personal example. One of my favorite communities here in Houston is the night scene. I have been involved with the night scene since I was a teenager, and still am involved with them. I know you guys see, my pictures will go out to many of the dances and the raves and stuff like that, and it's just been so much of a joy to see so many of my friends start off as, little people with their little musics, and now they're DJs DJing at clubs and stuff like that. So it's just very, very fun, but still involved in that community. And we know that sometimes not the best people are at raves. There's people on drugs. There's people, it's just a very wild, chaotic energy. But every time I'm out, without fail, someone will come up to me. Someone will corner me off into the side, and we'll just begin to talk about things that are going on in their life. They just need a little direction, a little guidance, and maybe they're not too familiar with a conjure practice or with hoodoo or with voodoo, maybe they don't know Santeria or Ifa, these things. It's not for them to know these things. It's for us to know our practices and our cultures and, what we believe in. But it is for them to see that light, that they're attracted to. And by helping someone, you may not even give the person any advice. You may just sit there quietly, listen to them, and that was the best medicine they've had in a very long time, is they just needed someone to listen to them. Many times, that is what we as conjure doctors will be, is listeners and not talkers. We'll listen to the person's problems. When they hear themselves telling those problems, they also hear their own answers of how to start fixing those problems. Every once in a while, you'll have to chime in with somebody and say, maybe you should try this route, And I would always give somebody a third try. If they come to you and talk to you about this for the third time and you've remained silent about that third time, maybe you might want to offer them a little advice. As a doctor in conjure, you have to understand, once you've given your advice, be hesitant to give it twice and never give it thrice. People must learn on their own, and you cannot you cannot cradle all of these people, okay? That's also part of being a spiritual doctor, is learning how to allow people to be responsible for their own self-healing, for their own self-worth, okay? How to fix their problems and their dilemmas. If they're not taking your advice, what good is it for you to see them? If your doctor, your medical doctor, you went and saw him and he says, and God forbid, Sammy, you've got high blood pressure, you've got high cholesterol, you've got to change your diet, you've got to do these things in order to stay healthy. And Sammy, if you don't listen to him and you just get more sick and more sick and more sick, what was the point of going to that doctor? What was the point of him wasting all of his time telling you the things that you need to do to stay healthy, to bring down your cholesterol, to bring down your blood pressure. It is the same thing in spiritual practices. Why are you talking to a wall? If your voice is not being effective with the people and who are seeking counsel with you, do not advise them. Let them learn on their own. Okay? So, into what kind of conjure doctor will you be? One of the ones that stuck out was Todd. Todd, yours was to be very involved in your community, very involved with teaching, with showing people how to do things, with being an example. Okay? Where does that come from?
Well, that comes from when I first started to get learning about conjure and doing magic. Started taking classes. I started to make things, and as I started to make things, I started to share them with people. And as I started to share them with people, people started to come to me with problems, come to me with questions about things, and I would help them out with that. I don't really have a shingle out for doing conjure work, but people still tend to find me. They still tend to seek me out, and so I do that from time to time. I've taken a little bit of a try at teaching, and I realized that I have a lot to learn. I think I did some good short classes, but I think I have a lot of room for improvement. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I like sharing information. I like helping people along.
And so what was number 5? What was your strongest one?
Building.
Building and creating.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing right now in your community, in your creating things, and your making of different oils and stuff like that, and teaching things. So you're building a strong community in knowledge. You're building their knowledge, and you're creating good friendships, right? Goodwill and friendships. Yep. So
yeah, absolutely.
And so another one that stuck out to me was Linnell. Linnell, yours was very interesting as well. It was very simple, but the one that stuck out the most, the one word that stuck out the most was healer. So I would like for you to share a little bit with the rest of the group on your path and what kind of conjure doctor you feel you would be.
The reason why I almost chose healer is because it's most like people notice it in me first before I notice it in myself. But empathetic towards people, I help people move forward. I care for people, so I want to see them do better. So I have no problem giving advice or hearing them out, or just being quiet and being but listening here. And sometimes when they want the advice, I give it to them, or they figure it out themselves. Also, going into massaging in the holistic area, I also learned the herbs and oils, and I'm really enjoying it, and I like to make those for people, and it tends to help lend them a kind of strength. Also, I want to be a pillar in my community, like a stronghold. Like I said in the paper, I want to be like the pillar to hold up the ceiling. I want to hold up people. I want to help them out. It's hard to explain, but I want to. When I picture that I want to be in a community, I picture that the gentle old person in a hut or their shack. You know, the herbs, the animals, the curios. You know, when you hear them knock on the door, and it's like you're not to refuse that person. I let them in. I sit. I listen. They talk to me, and when it's time for me to give their advice or to give them what they need, I have no problems with that. I want to be that person in my community, not just the spiritual, the medical aspect, but my mundane. I want to be there for people. I will not close my door if someone needs help. I will not refuse any, even my enemies. If my enemies came to my door and want advice or something happened, I have no problem. I will not shut a person out.
Thank you, Linnell. This is very important what Linnell was talking about even if your enemies come to your door for advice. We cannot refuse service to anyone initially. Now, it is good practice many times to cut off services for the well-being of the individual, who we'll be referring to as the subject or the patient. Okay? So it's very important for you to understand that. It is good to begin to cut off some services, but it is bad practice to refuse services to anyone, to refuse to lend the ear. You must listen to people. Maybe a lot of times, it may be that it's not a message that you need to give to them. It could also be that they have a message to give to you. The spirits, they are very funny. They don't always talk to us through our friends. Sometimes they speak to us through our enemies, through those we do not like. But at the same time, we must listen to them and offer them good advice too. If your enemy comes to you for spiritual help or for spiritual advice, do not be weary. A lot of people think, well, why is this person coming to me for advice? Why are they coming to me for a working, or, you know, what's going on? Don't have that feeling. Service them 100% as anyone else. It is through your generosity and your genuine behavior towards them that you begin to shift them from being your enemy to seeing you, for them to see you as someone who is okay. That's an okay guy right there. You know, and I don't have a problem with him. You have the ability to change people's minds about you. Many times people don't like us because they don't know who we are. And that's fine. They don't need to like us. This is not a game of, do I have the most friends? Am I the most popular? Am I, am I the most known? The question is, am I being most effective? Write that down. Am I being most effective? Sammy, tell us, what would you like to be in your community? What kind of, and Linnell, thank you so much for saying pillar, because folks, that is what we are to be, a pillar. Sammy, what kind of pillar, doctor, would you be in, are you wanting to be in your community?
I think if you really teach, I guess that's one of the things that I really like to do. I'm still a student myself, and I guess with this question, it's very difficult because it's just so trying to come up with where I want to be in the midst of everything else is definitely a balancing act that I'm still trying to work out on my own. And I think one of the things that really struck me, just listening to the conversation now, was just the act of just listening and just kind of taking a moment of just breath and just kind of letting just kind of things come at you as they are, and then being able to kind of like act with that instead of reacting. And I think that's, I feel like I want to redo like my assignment now, just because I think I was so busy trying to like come up with something, and I just kept talking and talking that it didn't actually seem something of substance, if that makes sense.
Yeah. If I may, and this was a conversation that I was having with Frank most this week past, was that you will find that throughout time your core values will change. Your foundations will change, your pillars will change, everything will change. It's just a matter of, are they going to change like that very hard, or will you make smooth transitions into change? The other thing is, like I said, find your community. Sammy, what community do you see yourself serving most? What community do you see yourself being more of a light in?
Definitely, it would be the like LGBT. Like, I see myself as like an activist, probably first, and then like academic second. I think that would be probably the biggest thing. Like, whenever like my friends are having like any sort of like questions or problems, especially when it comes to like gender and sexuality, like I'm always like that's like my familiar zone. Like I can like I have some sort of like grounding there that I can just like combat like with my full heart.
Thank you so much. Nikki Buchanan, you're with us? Can you hear us?
Hello? I can hear, I just can't see anything.
Okay, awesome. Out of sight, out of mind, you guys, right? And Nikki, you're just this little NB on the bottom of my screen, and so I know you're listening, but I know you've got stuff to say too. I can feel you. What kind of pillar?
No.
What kind of pillar do you see yourself being, and in which community?
Honestly, I don't know. Like, but being that I'm like in this weird transition period of like my personal faith and just like transition like in my home life, like I'm like very unsettled. I'm like living out of a suitcase right now, and I don't really feel that connected to anybody, like outside of my family and outside of my classmates here. I don't really feel that connection. I'm dealing with a lot of, I don't know, I'm still trying to find the balance within myself, like we talked about earlier, and like realizing that sometimes, when people do come to me for advice or something, it's very hard for me to be objective with people, because a lot of the times, like when you like you mentioned earlier, like you don't want to give your advice more than 2 times. You definitely don't want to give it 3 times. And after a while, it's like I feel like there's a lot of people will come to you because they feel like you have an answer for them, but they don't want to do the work themselves. Like practitioner work is a lot of the client has to do work too. And I think that sometimes people don't want to do the work. They want to come to somebody else and let them do it. Like, well, just write a canvas for me. It's like, it's not that simple. Like, you have to get your mind in a place where you can receive the answers, even if it's not something that you want to hear. So I think that for me right now, I do have a lot of unpopular views on things. I do have a lot of opinions about things. I feel very passionate about things. And it's a struggle. So right now I'm in this withdrawn state where I'm like, just stay away from me. I don't want to keep people away from me. I mean, I'll have people coming to me on the street asking me all types of random questions. I will never turn them away, but at the same time, I don't really feel like I'm in a place where I can even like acknowledge who I am in the community yet. Like I'm still like this little seedling that needs space to grow. So I'm in a very, very like limbo type of space right now with that. Just trying to absorb as much information as I can and figure out how I'm gonna move forward. Um I don't know, like I don't know if I wanna be a herbalist or if I wanna be like a candle worker or if I wanna be an academic. I'm not really sure yet. So there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Nikki, and thank you for sharing with us. Nikki, one of the things that I would like to point out for you and for all of you is that this is a good state for some of us to be in sometimes, is in this transitional phase where we don't know a left from a right, if we're going forwards or backwards, if we're going to go around this corner or that corner. To be arrogant and lost is bad. To know that you're going in the wrong direction and not acknowledge it, or to know that you're lost and not acknowledge that you're lost. We men are the worst at this. We'll drive around 50 million times around one thing before we ask for directions, right? But how Nikki said, she knows she's in this place. She knows right now she's trying to figure out her balance, where she belongs, you know. But Nikki also pointed out her pillars. Her family is who she's close to right now, and her classmates, not really too many other people. That's fine. You don't have to be all the way into the water. It's okay to just have your toes in the water, okay? And for Nikki, her toes would be her family and the study class. So, Nikki, this advice goes to you, and for the rest of you, when you find yourself in this area, and my dear, I found myself in that area not too long ago, you know. Just to share a little personal with you guys, some of you who have followed me for quite some time and have known me for a little time know that this very place where I'm sitting in right now, one day a sheriff knocked on the door and said, "Your landlord stopped paying the bill, so y'all are all getting evicted." Just like that, I found myself homeless. I found myself having to fight for my home, having to pack up my stuff, knowing not where to go, relying on the kindness of my friends. One friend said, "Come on, move in with me, I got an extra room," you know, and another friend said, "Come on, move in with me, I got an extra room," you know, and I was lost. I didn't know, you know, where I was going to be going, what I was going to be doing, where I was going to be living. It was a good time to reflect on myself. It was a good time to see who I was and what my strengths were, where my friends were in my community. And through that time, there's no better figure to keep in mind than the great Moses himself. And this is why. Moses had it all. Moses had power, he had money, he had rule, he had Egypt at his hands. Okay? And then, just like that, it was gone. Moses found himself in the desert, wandering, not knowing which way he was going, whether he was going left or he was going right. He was going through identity crisis. This man who just came from being this wealthy prince is now in rags in the desert, you know. And don't quote me historically, I don't know what he was wearing. But he was in the desert, he was lost. He found himself. He found himself in the desert. He found himself wandering. And even when he found himself with Zipporah and with Jethro, he was still lost. The Almighty came to him and said, "This is what I need you to do." And Moses still doubted himself. He still did not have his foundations. There are a lot of lessons we can learn from Moses. Religion aside, remove the religion from Moses and focus on the man and the story. Focus on the problems that he had and how he overcame them. Focus on how he was so great of a person, but yet still a person. And yet, when he found himself again, he was able to lead not just a nation, but an entire people out of something. And so I want you, Nikki, to focus on Moses. Utilize his story. Sync it with what you're going through. Moses, he was a great listener. He was a great leader. He gave a lot of spiritual advice and brought down the commandments from Sinai and all of these things. But at the same time, Moses got tired. He didn't want to hear people. He didn't want to hear complaints. He didn't want to hear all of the things that were going on out there. He didn't want to. He just wanted to pay attention to himself and be left alone for a little bit. But eventually, he picked up his responsibilities, his calling, And so there is a lot to learn from Moses in our lives, especially in balancing and learning who we are and what we are to become. It's wonderful that you already have some choices, Nikki, on what you want to be. If you want to work with herbs or if you want to work with candles. And as you continue through this course, as I hope you do, we're going to get into how to be working with candles and how to be working with herbs. And so all of the things that I will be teaching you are things that I want you to harness on. One of you may work with candles, another of you may work with oils, another of you may work with powders, and some of you may work with prayer and with meditation. You'll all find your gift. You're all here because you have a gift. So, as you go on this week, I want you to think of your assignments, think of each other, keep in constant communication. Some of you are pillars to other people. Some of you are support systems to other people. Now is the time to begin paying attention to more than just yourself, more than just what affects you. Look at all of these faces on the screen right now. All of the people here, each one of you are different, each one of you are unique, each one of you are the same, because we are all people. And I can be here for you, for Sammy, for Roxana. I can be here for Nikki and for Linnell. I can be here for all of you. And one of you can be here for me. All of you can be here for me. Despite our differences, be that for each other. Be that for other people. But remember to take care of yourself. Okay? We are to be lights in our community, but we are also people. We have faults. We have moments of fits of rage. We have we have moments of doubt, moments of confusion. We have moments of hate and moments of anger. Sometimes we can catch it in ourselves, and we can pull back the reins on us, on our personal feelings. Sometimes it takes each other to point those things out, to say, hey, my friend, I noticed that you're getting a little, stressed out over there. What's going on? Talk to me. Frank has been a good friend this week, reaches out to me and says, oh, I see you're stressed, and you got a lot going on at work, and you got a lot going on in life, and stuff like that, and just a really good ear for me this week. As we become pillars in our community, we also have to remember that somebody has to listen to us too. We can't always do the listening, and that's what you all are. You all are each other's listeners and ears. As we end the class, I just want to take an opportunity to do 2 minutes of silence. There is a lot going on in the air. There are several things happening in our world on many, many different planes. There is a lot going on in the physical with our earth. There is a lot going on in the political with our governments. There is a lot going on socially with the people. There is a lot going on emotionally as well. There is a lot of anger in the air. There's a lot of sorrow in the air. There are a lot of people who are confused and afraid. One of the things that, just shook me this morning was we were on our way to work and the news reported that nearly 1,000 Europeans are missing in Nepal. They were on vacation in the mountains. They were traveling just regular everyday lives. Nepal is not even their home, and they're missing. There are people, their families, they have loved ones who are back home. I'm sure they can't get to Nepal, worried, scared. Is my loved one alive? Are they passed on? Are they lost? What's going on? Several people. So there's a lot in the air, and I know that several of you have felt it this week. Several of you have just, I've talked with some of you, so with several of you I have told, I know in particular I'm going to call out Linnell. One of the things that I told Linnell was, when you start feeling this darkness, this oppression start coming behind you, and you'll feel it out in the air or you'll feel it in the room, stand up straight. Don't arch your back. Don't hunch over. Sit firm and be confident. Try that now. Try that right now. Sit firm and straight. Nothing can get on your back when it isn't arched. This is from Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, "A man cannot ride your back if you are standing up straight." This is spiritual as well, folks. Those feelings, those things, just feel how much more confident and more firm you got when you started sitting up straight. Walk through the darkness tall. Walk through the negativity tall. Walk strong. Notice yourself. Are you starting to hunch, or are we standing firm and tall? So for just 2 minutes, I would like us to sit in silence. Each one of us has something else that we're very passionate about. Each one of us has something that inside we are being affected by situations outside of our own world. And so let us focus on balance and peace. For 2 minutes, put all of our emotions, all of our passions aside, and focus on just that, balance and peace. Begin, please. Welcome back, everybody. Want to thank everybody for coming to class tonight. Let's keep our classmates who were unable to be here because of their schedules informed and involved. Remember to be involved with each other. Remember to love all people and start looking for those 5 people who are going to hold you accountable to your core values. Remember the exercises that I told you to practice, try to get into your routine, 20 to 30 minutes weekly, bi-weekly, once a month. You set the schedule, you set the routine, okay? The other one was searching for your power hand. Which one is your power hand? Is it your left hand or is it your right hand? One of the things that you guys can utilize in this time may be a powerful hand candle. You can find the veladora of the most powerful hand. Burn this candle so that it may continue to remind you to be vigilant of which hand you're working your magical workings with. Remember your PowerPoints 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once you identify your power hand, placing it on your PowerPoint number 3, on your PowerPoint number 3, and being able to meditate from there. This is your assignment. It will be your assignment for the next 2 weeks, so it will be due in 2 weeks. And I will post it out for you. Let me tell you, folks, it has been very, very busy week, and I'm sorry that I did not post. The assignment, but each and every one of you were able to acknowledge the assignment and get it in. I will have your reviews up for you by mid next week. For those of you who have not finished turning in all of your assignments, please turn in your assignments. Now, it's not about getting them in on time, so don't worry if your assignments have been late or if it's going to be held against you for turning them in late. There's different things that I'm looking at within your assignments than you getting them in on time. I'm looking for your personal development. So we will see each other again next Friday at 8 p.m. And I hope you all have a very blessed weekend and have a wonderful night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Good night.